Fortnite is closing in on its birthday in a few months' time where it'll turn 2 years old, but this isn't your regular toddler. This toddler is rich! Epic Games has steered the ship since day one, and if you look at the success of the Battle Royale, you'd probably think that they can't do anything wrong, but trust us, they can. In fact, we can pinpoint quite a few mistakes they made that we believe have already had a negative impact on Fortnite. You saw it in the thumbnail, and we just couldn't leave you hanging. We're going to be talking about the drum gun right away. Of course, just like you and Vicstar123, we were gutted when we lost the drum gun. It was our favorite weapon and we missed it so much, but now that it's back in the game, we feel like we got our purpose in life back. When the weapon was first introduced into Fortnite, it was ridiculously OP, to put it lightly. It was deadly accurate up to mid-range, which was pretty insane for an SMG, and then to top it all off, it did more DPS than any other SMG and then had a whopping 50 bullets in a magazine. We weren't lying when we said it was completely insane. The gun was dominant, which wasn't what Epic Games intended at all. When you pick up the gun in Season 9, then you know that the weapon is just as OP as ever. Sure, Epic Games did make some changes to the weapon, adjusting the spawn rate of the drum gun so it's more in line with other weapons, but it needs a bigger nerf or else it could have a significant negative effect on the Season 9 meta. We just had to talk about the fact that Epic Games removed the pump shotgun. Just like Thanos, it was inevitable, and just like Rifty, we're still crying about it. We just couldn't believe what we were seeing in the patch notes. It was a huge decision that Epic Games made, and quite frankly, it hasn't been a good one. Sure, Season 9 has actually been quite enjoyable compared to past seasons, but we really miss it. According to Epic Games, and I quote here, pump shotguns currently account for over 26% of eliminations in default playlists, with the next weapon type not even coming close. Rather than nerfing the pump shotgun, our preference is to return it to the vault, giving us an opportunity to revisit the general balance of the item while introducing a new shotgun. Our goal with the combat shotgun is to provide an item that fills a similar niche, but with a different risk and reward, end quote. So we agree with them completely, but at the end of the day, it was a decision that upset the masses. Only time will tell if this actually was a bad choice or not, but players are not huge fans of the combat shotgun that replaced it, saying that it's much too weak in comparison. While those were the big changes from Season 9 that upset fans and may hurt Fortnite in the future, we're now going to take a look at some of the changes that hurt the game in the past. Back in Season 7, when patch 7.4 rolled in, it added some great new features to Fortnite that we thought were going to stick around forever. Epic Games had the brilliant idea to give players 50 health for every elimination they earn. Of course, if your health was already full, then you'd gain 50 shield instead. But if you already had full health and shield when you got an elimination, you obviously got nothing. It was a very simple and interesting feature that was supposed to get players to stop camping and fight, which was a huge problem in Fortnite at the time. It definitely did make players much more aggressive than before, and it kind of upped the sweatiness, but we enjoyed it until they removed it in patch 8.2. We were no longer rewarded for our eliminations with health or shield. All we got was a big old goose egg. Just as we were getting used to the feature, it was gone, never to be seen again, making kills much less rewarding. Another similar feature was added to Fortnite in the exact same patch. Along with getting 50 health or shield for every elimination, you'd get 50 of each material after an elimination. Yep, you heard us right. You'd get 50 wood, 50 brick, and 50 metal after every single kill, which could have been very useful when a third party would show up and try to take you down. Just think about the implications of this feature. It made kills so rewarding because you'd get 150 total materials along with health or shield that could protect you from getting third party, which is hands down one of the most annoying parts of a battle royale. Nothing is more frustrating than winning a fight and then getting taken out seconds later by a guy who is watching from afar. You all know where this is going though, and in patch 8.2, it got removed for no apparent reason. Epic Games just teased us with a useful feature and then took it right away before we were finally getting used to it. It was frustrating to see such a useful and revolutionary battle royale feature get removed from the game just because it was too rewarding for high-skill players. The Infinity Blade was one of the most infamous additions to Fortnite, and for good reason. At first, we were very excited to see a brand new mythic melee weapon in the game. We've never seen anything like it. But just like Kevin Fortnite, we quickly realized something was just a little off about the weapon, and by off we mean that it was completely OP. You were able to turn into any of the main characters from Game of Thrones using the Infinity Blade because you just couldn't die. 1 or 2 slashes were enough to take down opponents, and then you were able to lunge into the air and drop down to deliver a powerful strike. It was also incredibly effective at taking out structures, meaning that there was pretty much nothing this weapon could not do. Literally everyone on the planet was complaining about the weapon, including your 80-year-old neighbor. It was so bad, Epic Games had to apologize for adding it to the game on Twitter, getting a bunch of retweets in the process. You could have voted for it in the Nexus event, and we're happy it didn't win, or else we would have quit Fortnite right then and there. Another awful decision from the same season the Infinity Blade was introduced were those pesky Stormwing planes. Like most new additions in Fortnite, they were very fun to use at first, but players quickly realized how broken these planes were. They were a great way for players like Target 3D Gaming to get around the Fortnite map, but everything else about them was terrible. Literally no one used them to get into some sick Top Gun style aerial battles. Nope. Instead, players would just dive bomb into other players, possibly eliminating them in one fell swoop. It was beyond annoying, and we can feel our blood pressure rising just thinking about those planes. To make matters even worse, there were no risks to flying these planes. If you wanted to jump out, it was all good because you'd just activate your glider and then fall down safely. There was no need to stick the landing or anything like that because there was no fall damage if you decided to jump out in midair. And then on top of that, the planes were very easy to control and there were no real counters to it other than the mounted turret. These planes should have never been in the game to begin with. One of the features Epic Games added to Fortnite that wasn't so good was allowing players to redeploy their glider in all modes. It started with the Soaring 50s LTM mode that allowed us to be able to deploy our gliders anytime, and we didn't think much of it at first. Like I-10 plays, we thought it was just a fun little gimmick, but after a few games, we really got used to the glider redeploy. Now, the community didn't ask to put it in all the game modes, we just wondered what it would be like, but clearly, Epic Games didn't understand where we were all coming from and then decided to add it into all game modes without doing a poll or anything first. They made it so that players were able to redeploy their glider anytime, which meant we could jump from anything and then not take any fall damage at all. Saying this decision flopped was a massive understatement. Players absolutely hated it because teams would just swoop in, literally, the second they heard gunfire in third party. Traveling around the map was too easy, and both casual and pros were complaining about it, so we were very happy when Epic Games got rid of it for good. Just saying the word Fortnitemares takes us back to a time where Fortnite was probably at its worst. We're talking about Season 6. We were so excited for Halloween 2018 because we were looking forward to the Fortnitemares event. Back in Season 1, it was a huge hit, so players were so excited for this year's event. We were waiting and willing to spend out sweet V-Bucks on new skins and... well, it ended up being a very underwhelming event. Not only did we get lame re-releases of last year's skins, but as T Martin 2 shows us, we got zombies. Or cube monsters? We hated them so much we don't even remember what they're called. We quickly grew sick and tired of these annoying creatures, like really sick and tired of them. All they would do is get in the way of a crucial battle and then ruin all of your hard work. Of course, this goes both ways because they could also annoy your opponent, but it's just ridiculous. Stuff like this shouldn't be in the middle of a game, and the pros weren't having it. There's already enough variables as it is, and then adding cube monsters to the mix didn't help at all. We are so happy that they're gone. The Fortnitemares event wasn't the only thing in Season 6 that was a big disappointment, so were the Shadow Stones. If it's possible, we'd like the Men in Black to come to the office and then erase the fact that these stones ever existed from our memory. Like a lot of the bad additions Epic Games made to Fortnite, these stones sounded good on paper, but in reality, they came with a lot of unexpected problems. Players like Basically I Do Work were able to make themselves invisible for the whole match, not just 45 seconds. They just looked like a floating gun or pickaxe, which is absolutely hilarious, but the items were clearly broken. Obviously, it was very difficult to pinpoint exactly where to shoot an invisible player, and something had to be done. These shadow stones were supposed to make you give off a purple trail and wear off after a short time, but this glitch just made you completely invisible. No trail, no nothing, which is why they were constantly going in and out of the vault in Season 6. We knew these stones weren't going to stick around for future seasons, but Epic Games couldn't even get things right for the one season that they were in the game. Say what you want about the light machine gun, but we were huge fans of the weapon. In fact, we still miss it to this day, and we're sure we're not alone. Right, Laserbeam? Oh, he hated the LMG? Well then, I guess we are alone after all. Anyway, the LMG was our best friend, which is kinda sad, but trust us, it's true. Introduced in patch 3.5.2, the LMG had a huge 100-round magazine, a high rate of fire that allowed you to burn through that mag in just a few seconds, and it did some solid damage as well. This thing absolutely shredded anyone and anything at close range, but it was a spray and pray weapon, which upset a lot of players. The only real negatives of this weapon were its high recoil and ridiculous muzzle flash. You couldn't see a thing when firing the weapon, and it kicked like a mule, so you could only hit targets 2 feet in front of you. When you fired the weapon, all you saw was the muzzle flash from your bullets. It got vaulted due to complaints in patch 6.0, which leaves us scratching our heads wondering why it was even added to the game. Many players were on the fence about Season 5, but we rated very highly here at CBR. It was definitely one of the best seasons, mainly because it was the season that introduced us to our friend Kevin the Cube. While it was a great season, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for console players, especially on launch day. If just saying Season 5 launch gets you angry enough to unleash your inner Hulk, that's because it was an awful day. You see, most updates go off without a hitch, but not this one. It came with a boatload of problems on console and was pretty much unplayable on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Many believe it was one of the worst updates in the history of video games, but we wouldn't go that far. There was a tremendous amount of lag, the game kept crashing, and it was just terrible. Luckily, once there were less players online, things seemed to get better, so it was clearly a server issue. Fortnite most likely had over 1 million players online at once, and it seemed like Epic Games weren't prepared at all for such a large influx of players. Thankfully, season launches have gone much smoother since then. Speaking of terrible updates that ruin the game, we have patch 6.21. This Season 6 update was one of the most infamous Fortnite updates of all time, and for good reason. Normally, these weekly updates during the season are to introduce weapons, challenges, LTMs, and little tweaks, but this update had a huge change. We have no idea what Epic Games was thinking back then, but they decided to allow explosives to damage players through walls and then other structures. Yeah, you heard us right. They allowed explosives to damage players through walls, meaning you could get damaged by things you can't see, which in the words of Sonic the Hedgehog is no good. We cannot even begin to understand what was going through those inconsistently brilliant minds at Epic Games. The fact that this idea was brought up at a meeting and agreed upon as a good decision to make is actually hilarious. What were they thinking? Of course, the decision was a bad one, and players were absolutely freaking out about it. Even players who don't read patch notes noticed that they were getting damaged through walls. So it was nearly instantly patched by Epic Games in a quick hot fix. The mounted turret was actually ridiculous when it was first introduced in patch 6.3, and players wanted it out of the game as soon as possible. It's an item that we never asked for, but we got it anyway, which is usually a good thing, but not in this case. In a regular core game mode, it's pretty powerful, but not downright OP. In a 50 vs 50 LTM though, the mounted turret can be absolutely lethal. Just look at Lachlan shred everything in sight. It was also good at taking down Stormwing planes, so it was hard to hate the item too much. Plus, it's a legendary trap item, meaning it's very rare, and we hope it stays that way because it's crazy strong. It has unlimited ammo, meaning you can fire it as much as you want, but just make sure to take your finger off the trigger every once in a while because it could overheat if you fire it for too long. Each bullet does 40 damage to players, and the turret itself had so much health at first that Epic Games had to severely nerf it. The item is fine now, but back in Season 6, players were not happy. Back in the early days of Fortnite, and we're talking like Seasons 1 and 2, almost everyone was a complete and utter noob. We're not even exaggerating, you name it, and most players sucked at it. Whether it was building or combat, there weren't really many good players in the Fortnite community. Well, Scissors was pretty good, and then there was even this guy called Ninja, who you may have heard of, but overall, players were pretty bad. Heck, we're still bad to this day, in Season 9. Anyway, the lack of skill at this point in the Fortnite community led to a lot of players camping in bushes to get to the end of the game where they'll pray to the Fortnite gods and hope that they somehow get that one lucky kill to win the game. It's definitely a boring tactic, but hey, all you need is one kill to win a game, and some players have even won without an elimination, so it could definitely work. Instead of making bushes solid so no players can just camp in them, Epic Games decided to add an item that turns you into a bush yourself. We guess their motto must have been, if you can't beat them, become them. Of course, with the pump shotgun gone from Fortnite, that also means the dream of the double pump returning is officially dead. Yup, Epic Games didn't just kill a weapon, they killed the meme, the best meme. Whether you loved it or hated it, double pump was a very effective and simple tactic in Fortnite. As Daquan Loco shows us, all you had to do is carry 2 pump shotguns or more and switch between them after every shot. This significantly reduced the delay between shots and really gave you an advantage against other players who weren't using the same strat at close range. The pros couldn't get enough of this strategy, but the casual players, including noobs, hey, like us, hated it. It was a clear exploit. While there's a saying that goes, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, we still didn't appreciate the double pump. Players are always looking for an advantage, so they found the double pump tactic, and they'd still be using it today if Epic Games didn't patch it. Goodbye, double pump. We hope you never come back. And those are just some of the decisions that Epic Games made that hurt Fortnite. What do you think is the worst decision that they ever made? Are there any that we may have missed? Let us know in the comments section below, and then don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more Fortnite videos. Thanks for watching.